Hello, Sagittarius. Welcome to your December horoscope. You are a little bit of the main character this month, I have to say, because we have some things going through your sign. I've been telling everybody that there is definitely a possibility that a lot of people are going to be very loud and wrong this month. There's a lot of miscommunication in the air. There's a lot of the need to be flexible. We have a new moon in your sign this month, so there's going to be a new sense of self that's being developed as we go into the new year. Very exciting stuff. Let's get into it. So on the 1st, Mercury entered into your 2nd house. Mercury is really going to show us wherever we're thinking about things, having ideas, having conversations, chatting with people. It's what we're talking about, what we're thinking about, who we're talking about it with, the context of it. It's really getting from point A to point B, connecting all of the dots. It's also transportation, siblings, short trips, etc. It's usually going to be the smaller, more mundane but necessary things of our life that's kind of like the glue, as well as a emphasis on our communication. So having that go through our 2nd house can really emphasize things around money. So money, possessions, anything that's in your name, anything that you invest in. It can be both literal and maybe more spiritual senses of investment. So things that you put your money into, like making a big purchase. Obviously, it's Christmas, it's the holiday season. A lot of people, a lot of Sagittarius risings might be spending a lot of money, maybe more than they should be or think that they can. It can also be bigger purchases in the sense of like moving into a new piece of property, buying a new car, maybe having a new sense of self in regards to your values, the things that are important to you, your self-worth. It's also things like getting your basic needs met, access to basic resources, what you're eating, what you consume, what you use to fuel yourself, again, both literally or metaphorically. So having Mercury here is just going to bring a sense of focus to this area of the chart, but you want to pay extra attention to this because it is going to go retrograde, so there can be a little bit of susceptibility to anything that you are thinking about at the beginning of the month changing. As we get to the 3rd, Venus in your 11th house squared Pluto in your 2nd house. So I'm recording this on the 5th. This already happened, but Venus is the planet of love, money, beauty, pleasure, relationships, things that feel very good, very warm, smooth, and buttery. Having it come into a square with Pluto, usually across the board, is going to bring a lot of intensity or some edge to things regarding finances and relationships. So Pluto has a lot to do with profound truth, with deep things, intense things. It's like this, investigative energy, like getting down to the root of something and changing it for the better, but it's usually a little bit uncomfortable. So to have a square, which is a sense of conflict or friction, maybe some disagreement between these two areas of the chart, it was happening in your 11th house of friends, associates, bigger dreams, bigger goals, like vision board sort of goals, things that give you a general sense of belonging to a particular group, community, organization, anything like a political party, a group chat, even like work friends, acquaintances, things like that, coming into a conflicting aspect with Pluto in your 2nd house. So this can be, again, some sort of clash or uncomfortable thing between money and very big goals, maybe what you project for yourself in the future versus what you have right now. It can be your ability to have resources and then how other people pour into you or support you, because the 11th house, I would say, is people that give you money, it's friends, it's followers, it's people that are sort of externally supporting you. So having that intensity between your 2nd and your 11th house doesn't even have to be inherently bad. It could have looked like an intense moment or confrontation or just like revelation between the people that you associate with or your really big goals versus your money, your belongings, your possessions, and what you need for yourself. On the 4th, Venus entered your 12th house. So Venus, again, is the planet of love, money, beauty, pleasure, indulgence, things that feel good, things that bring a sense of ease and warmth and like fuzziness, coziness to our lives. I always say this is like having a crush on somebody. It's eating your favorite food. It's finding $20 on the floor. It's the things that are typically going to feel pretty like enjoyable to the average person. Having this go through your 12th house, the 12th house has everything to do with your psyche, your dreams, your intuition, your subconscious. It's things that maybe we can't see or prove or have tangible evidence for in the physical realm, but what's going on in here and what's going on in here. So it's everything that's very esoteric and mystical. It's mental health, it's therapy, it's healing, it's addiction, it's escapism, it's secrets, it's things that are sort of happening behind closed doors or lurking in the dark a little bit, whether that be your own blind spot of hiding things from other people or partners or relationships hiding things from you. So sometimes Venus going through the 12th house looks like you needing a little bit more space from your partner or vice versa, them needing space from you. It can look like feeling a little bit lonely or maybe unappreciated or unacknowledged when it comes to romantic or just interpersonal relationships. It can also be where there is some sort of secrecy. It's not going to be for everybody across the board, so don't get, scared that something malicious is happening behind your back, but in some cases it can look like some sort of secrecy or like hidden information regarding your relationships, love, money, finances. Again, the 12th house too can be blind spots in the sense of like where we are self-sabotaging, where we're getting our own way and we don't even really realize how we're playing like into our own victimhood or into our own suffering. So I would just try to acknowledge if you feel that there's anything relevant in that area of the chart. You might just be more tired, you might be sleeping more, you might be indulging and relaxing more. I would say to just be careful with any vices or indulgences that are problematic, like drinking too much, doing too many drugs, etc., like doom scrolling, watching too much Netflix. On the 5th, so today, Venus in your 12th house is actually in a really supportive aspect to Saturn in your 4th house. So this is now combining those same themes in the 12th house of like your dreams, your psyche, your intuition, your mental health, things that are very intuitive, in a supportive aspect to Saturn in your 4th house. So Saturn is the planet of challenge, limitation, restriction, discipline, responsibility, where we don't really want to do these things or they don't always feel good, but they're necessary. It's something that we have to do. It's something that we have to go through. So Saturn going through your 4th house, this is a much longer transit. It's going to be over the span of 3 years, and it began back for you in March of this year, but this can sometimes bring some challenge, some struggles, some limitations or restrictions to the living situation, the environment, the home, or the relationships with the family, or just your internal world. It's generally like a sense of things getting tougher in regards to your comfort zone, your literal like physical environment or living space, or the people close to you, your relationships that you share roots with. So usually family members. So to have a supportive aspect here is actually showing that any sort of complications or slowness or delays or hindrances or boredom or loneliness within the home might be supported by Venus in the 12th house, which could even look like traveling. You might be going somewhere foreign with a partner, you might be going on vacation, but it can also look like, again, kind of getting more of a supportive outcome from solitude rather than a negative outcome from loneliness. You might be feeling a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more in touch with like your deeper self. There could even be some sort of discipline when it comes to you being and acknowledging like the things that you do that are a little bit escapism-y or are a little bit metaphysical, and complicating those things like your inner peace, or what's the word that I'm looking for? It's like you might be acknowledging where you use things to run away, or your tendencies that you use to like numb yourself from things that are challenging, and you might be looking at them now in a more reflective way where you're seeing the intuitive things, the spiritual things behind it, and you're like, okay, let me take this a little bit more seriously. It's a positive aspect. It's usually hard work paying off. It's a sense of Venus being pleasure and Saturn again being responsibility, but these two things working hand in hand is saying like you are doing the necessary responsible things that are required in order for you to still get your desires met, rather than choosing what makes you happy versus what's the right thing to do. So again, this is between your 4th house, home, family, living situation, private life, property, your roots, your ancestry, the really what was provided to you growing up to make you into who you are, your childhood, and then your 12th house of your mental health, healing, letting go of things. You might even be having a full circle moment or spiritual or emotional breakthrough through something like therapy and letting go. On the 7th, Neptune is going to station direct in your 4th house. It's been retrograde since June 30th. So Neptune's a very dreamy planet. It's very creative. It's very spiritual. It has basically everything to do with the 12th house like we just discussed. It's actually the higher octave of pleasure in the sense that it's things that feel really good. So Venus is like your favorite food, your crush, right? Neptune is like the toxic ex that you have this obsession with. It's not your favorite food, it's your favorite drug. Like it has this sort of intensity and intoxicating nature to things that feel good, but at the expense of them being either quite damaging or us not seeing the bigger picture. It feels so good because we're not living in reality. We're living in a little bit of a fantasy or in a sense of escapism. So to have that station direct in your 4th house, typically Neptune being very dreamy, creative, intuitive, having it station retrograde can have this effect of just general brain fog or confusion, feeling like, I'm just a little bit fuzzy lately over the last few months. It can be that you weren't entirely clear or a little bit one foot in, one foot out when it came to your understanding or clear vision on the home, family, living situation, private life, who you are, where you come from, etc. Again, Neptune's a very slow moving planet. It's an outer planet. It's been here for years. It's not new energy, and you've dealt with it being retrograde pretty much every year. So to have it stationed direct is just going to give what is a break in the consistency of whatever effect it's been having on you since June. And in this case, it can sort of rip the band-aid off and make you have to face something very realistically. It can be a reality check. It doesn't have to be, again, bad or harsh. It can just be like, oh, this is now suddenly like very clear to me what I need to do or what this means or how I should approach this. Whereas throughout the summer, you might have been putting it on the back burner, kind of avoiding it, not thinking about it too hard, etc. On the 10th, Venus in your 12th house is going to be opposite Jupiter in your 6th house. So again, Venus is pleasure. It feels good. It feels great. It's very warm. It's very cozy. In the 12th house, it can be a little bit problematic in terms of its position, but Jupiter is also benefic. Both planets are benefics, meaning that they want to give you good things more than they want to give you bad things. They typically want to give you a sense of opportunity or pleasure or ease or enjoyment or things that feel good far more than they want to give you problems. And in opposition, worst case scenario, it's overindulgent and it functions in excess or just off of sheer optimism and confidence and can sometimes fall a little bit flat. It's like talking the talk and not being able to walk the walk. So this can look like spending too much money, eating too much. I always say it's like you should really just settle with one piece of the pie and you'll be satisfied, but by eating the whole pie just because it's right in front of you, it tastes really good until it doesn't, and then you're really sick. So it's kind of like overdoing it. It can also be like shopping sprees, things like that. But in your 6th house and 12th house, it has a lot to do with both your physical body and then like your internal world. So mind, body, spirit connections. It could have something to do with health, with symptoms. It could also be with like your work, your occupation, your job, your pets. But I would say between the 12th house as well, it's probably a little bit more spiritual or esoteric. So it might have something to do with energetic investments in terms of like what you give versus what you get, or how you help other people versus what you do to help yourself, how you might overextend or sacrifice yourself for the needs of others rather than your own needs, and where there's maybe an imbalance between your energetic output. But because it's such a positive transit, there might be solutions available, or something finally pays off or works out, or you're having a manifestation sort of come full circle in the physical realm, something that you have been putting on a vision board or dreaming about or subconsciously just like really wishing for is now showing up in the 6th house, which would be like your real world, your mundane sort of day-to-day things changing, your lifestyle, anything like that can really sort of come to fruition. It's a good luck day, so anything that you want to go smoothly, that would be a great day to sort of pitch it out there. On the 12th, there's going to be a new moon in your 1st house, so this is that main character energy. A new moon is usually going to be a new beginning, a new chapter starting, the conception of a new era. Having that in your 1st house of self-identity, who you are and what you look like, there might be some changes happening to the way that you actually look, like your physical attributes. You might be dyeing your hair, you might be having a full circle moment with like a weight loss journey, you might be just starting to sport like a new wardrobe or a new aesthetic or something like that. But this can also be a new really chapter to who you are and how you express yourself and how you navigate the world and how you perceive it and how you participate in it. So again, this isn't anything super rare. You have this once a year where you're getting that new chapter in a sense of who you are, and this is sort of that rebirth moment right around your birthday. So this is really good for putting yourself out there in a new way. If you want to kind of rebrand yourself or take on a new approach to the way that you go throughout the world, especially like in hand with like New Year's resolutions and things like that. Beautiful time to start manifesting that, and you'll see the results of that unfold over the next 2 months, as well as the next 2 weeks, as well as the next 6 months. It will come full circle. On the 13th, Mercury is going to station retrograde in your 2nd house. So this is what I was saying before, where on the 1st of the month, Mercury entered this area. You're thinking about money, you're thinking about what you need, you're thinking about moving, you're thinking about planning for the future and having a very strong foundation. Your thoughts and your mind and your cerebral stimulation is here. Having a station retrograde doesn't have to ruin everything, but it comes in and says, okay, let's revisit the drawing board, let's reconsider the details, let's connect the dots, because something maybe isn't ready to move forward too efficiently, or at least like hitting the ground running yet, because we need to kind of sort things out, sort out the bumps in the road before we can really thrive forward. So having this retrograde here in the 2nd house is really going to bring maybe details of money back from the past. It can bring bring things that you put on the back burner that was a source of income back to the front line again, where it's something you start doing to make money. It can be trying to figure out how to monetize something you've already been doing. It can be having like old payments or debt or things that other people owe you, or vice versa, becoming relevant again and resurfacing. I would try to tread lightly again with like really big purchases. This could be something where you might regret something that you have invested a lot of money into, or you might have realized, oh my God, I got the wrong version of this thing, or you might have realized that your subscriptions that you're paying for, you're actually getting charged like 3 times a month for one subscription. Like that's the sort of thing that we can see here. On the 17th, the sun in your first house is going to square Neptune in your 4th house. So typically Sun square Neptune aspects are usually going to be a day of, again, like deception, trickery, confusion, things not adding up. Again, it doesn't always have to be malicious. It doesn't have to look like somebody coming to you and lying to you on purpose, but rather that there was a miscommunication. Not everybody's on the same page as much as they think they are. Not everybody is seeing eye to eye, or there's like some sort of something is not adding up entirely. And usually with the sun, it has something to do with like ego, authority. If it's not something that's so, again, personal or malicious, there might just be something in the air that day where you're frazzled, or you're like, oh my God, I cannot think clearly. You're confused. There's brain fog. Having this happen between your first house and then your 4th house, it's a sort of, again, disagreement or confusing sort of aspect between your first house of self-identity, who you are, what you look like, who you are as an individual, coming in a head-to-head with your 4th house of home, family, where you come from, your property, your living situation, things like that. There might be something with like a landlord or somebody who is an authority figure, or like a government official having to do with like property or real estate that can be a little bit confusing on this day. If it's not so literal, it could be something between who you want to be versus where you came from and who you used to be in the past, or like, you know, your childhood self, who you were in your hometown, in your family for however many years, versus who you want to be now, and the illumination being on your identity in the first house in general. So I would say in general, just trust your gut when it comes to like family member things right now, or just make sure that everybody's on the same page and you're communicating very clearly. Other than that, I would just say tread lightly on this day and try not to make any permanent decisions on something that maybe isn't entirely adding up. On the 22nd, the sun is going to enter your 2nd house. So we had Mercury here already. Mercury is where the ideas and the cerebral stimulation, you know, thinking, talking, writing, all of the themes around your 2nd house of money is already here. Having the sun enter the party is now going to double down on this being a focal point of the month for you. The sun is going to illuminate it, bring a sense of attention to it, sort of put a spotlight on it, and make it what is like the main character area of your chart right now. On the 23rd, Mercury retrograde is going to go from your 2nd house back into your 1st house. So it's still going backwards. It's still retrograde, but it's going to be going so backwards that it's leaving your 2nd house and actually revisiting your 1st house. So the 1st house, again, self-identity, who you are, what you look like, who you are as an individual, the way that you approach the world. So the 2nd house is like your money, your income, your possessions. Again, though, it's personal values, things that are important to you, your standards, your boundaries, where you sort of draw the line almost, and what you accumulate for yourself. So to have this retrograde going between your 2nd house and your 1st house, there might be something where you're reconsidering financial decisions, or you're reconsidering what's important to you, what you want for yourself. But now we're revisiting the drawing board, so much so to the point where we're like, well, how does this reflect who I am, or what type of person that I want to be, and how do these two things overlap? I think there's like a rebranding energy here. If it's something more energetic and like spiritual and emotional, I think there's a lot of self-reflection happening for you this month, where you're like almost charting up like who you want to be, where you feel yourself going, the changes that you want to make with yourself, and how that needs to reflect in either your financial decisions or like your boundaries and your standards and your expectations for yourself and other people. This could even, again, be something with like weight loss. This could be something where you're changing your diet or the food that you eat because you want to look differently. There can be absolutely a change in nourishment and self-love, and deciding what is like a non-negotiable for you moving forward, and how that's going to complement or hinder the way that you navigate the world, and also how that's showing up with what you expect from other people. On the 25th, Venus in your 12th house is going to trine Neptune in your 5th house. So again, Venus is love, money, beauty, relationships, pleasure, things that feel good. Having it in a supportive aspect to Neptune in, your 4th house, this is again actually going to be connecting the themes between your 12th house of mental health. Maybe there's something, I think, because the 12th house has a lot to do with loneliness and solitude, and the 4th house is very private. It's the most private area of your chart, and where you kind of are who you are alone in your childhood bedroom, with all of the things that are familiar to you floating around you between the 3rd and the 5th house, like the transition between what is provided to you and what is taught to you, and then you kind of coming into the world and figuring out what you want for yourself based off of the way you were raised or the way that those things were taught to you. So the 4th house is sort of like anchoring the most intimate area of the chart, where you're at home, you're with your family, you're in your foundation. Of course, this doesn't always have to link directly to childhood, but I'm thinking that there's more esoteric things happening for you this month, and it can be through the vessel of, like, again, it's the holidays, you're talking to family, you're, discussing nostalgic memories, you're looking at old family photos, and I think you're just starting to connect the dots on maybe why you are the way that you are, or why you want to change the way that you are now based off of how that connects to the past in some way. I think the past can be coming up in a way that becomes more relevant again, for better or for worse, but this is a really supportive aspect. This is Christmas. It's the day that I would consider another good luck day in terms of connecting, again, the sense of like who you are at the core, your intuition, your mental health, the past, letting go, even like themes around death or loss are coming full circle, like metaphorical death, and that connecting with home, family, living situation, and just like ancestry and your roots. On the 27th, there's going to be a full moon in Cancer in your 8th house. So this is really going to be probably an emotional full moon. Full moons in general are going to be the closing of a chapter, a full circle moment, a tying up of loose ends. And having this in a water sign is typically going to be an emotional sort of, I don't want to say outburst. For some people, it might be something that's more explosive, but it's also cardinal energy, and cardinal energy likes to go, go, go. So it's like, despite this being an ending, it's probably an ending at the hand of, this area of my life needs to see a closure, therefore so that I can open a new door in the other areas of my life. So having that in Cancer in your 8th house, the 8th house is what you share with other people. Okay, this is what's happening. Your 4th, your 8th, and your 12th house are all getting so illuminated, and it's the most like spiritual, private, esoteric areas of the chart. I think there's a lot of, if you don't see anything physically changing in your life in a black and white way, like there's nothing, on paper that maybe really changes, it's because there's a lot going on in here and in here. Other than that, there's probably some financial changes happening because you have so many things going through your 2nd house of what belongs to you, and then a full moon in your 8th house is closing something that has to do with how you overlap with other people, whether that be financially or energetically. For some people, I wouldn't go as far as to say a breakup. I guess with Venus going through the 12th house, that might be present for some people, but this is probably more having to do with getting to the truth and the root of things that are a little bit more emotional and how you intertwine with other people. So the 8th house is really like more complicated finances. It's less about borrowing $20 from a friend and more about like taking out a loan, signing a lease with a roommate, signing a marriage contract, getting approved for something, your debt, paying taxes, things like that. But usually at the hand of trusting somebody else, whether that be an establishment, an institution like a bank, or something like, again, a marriage contract where you're like, I'm signing this because I'm signing my life into trusting you now, into overlapping with you and sharing assets. So if it's not financial, it's probably going to be more the energetic ties to you and somebody or something else. It's also the house of personal transformation, and it's where things go to die. So to have that in your 8th house, there's probably an energetic like shedding of the skin. On the same day, Chiron is going to station direct in your 5th house. So I think there's definitely some romantic things happening for you, or just your inner child needs, because Chiron isn't a planet, it's an asteroid, but it has a lot to do with trauma and sensitivities and wounds, and where we have some unresolved emotions, or where there's a little bit of a feeling of like pouring salt in the wound where something can still sting a little bit. So same thing with Neptune stationing direct. They're both very slow moving and they've been here for years, so it's going to be different for everybody, and it's usually more of like an undercurrent transit more than something that we can feel very strongly every single day. So Chiron retrograde, I would say for some people, gives them the opportunity to reflect on their wounds and kind of go towards them less intimidatingly and kind of like face them head on and be more open to the healing process. Therefore, when it stations direct, you're able to navigate forward a little bit smoother than you were when you were maybe still in pain. For other people, it can be that they were able to put their pain and their traumas and sensitivities sensitivities on the back burner the last few months. It's been retrograde since July 23rd. And then moving forward, it sort of starts to resurface and come back up where you're like, I guess I thought I was over this and I'm not entirely yet. And then for other people, if you've been like suffocating all summer over the last few months and like feeling completely hindered by any sort of pain or trauma, now that it's resuming regularly scheduled programming, you might be able to handle it a little bit better or carry it a little bit easier. There's a lot of callback to July, so think about what was going on for you the middle and the last week of July. It looks like we're having a lot of full circle moments in regards to your 5th house, which I didn't mention. The 5th house is love, sex, romance, pregnancy, children, really everything that you want for yourself. It's like creativity. It's like if you're a creator, you post on social media, this can have something to do with like the content that you make or the things that you're good at, your skill set. It's, speaking, talking, writing, dancing, entertaining, music, comedy, anything like that's talent oriented. It's also children, the children you already have. It's pregnancy, it's conceiving a child, it's sex, it's romance, it's dating, all of those things. So those wounds or sensitivities or attention to pain can be particularly around those themes. On the 28th, Mercury retrograde in your 1st house is now going to conjoin Mars square Neptune, your 4th house. So you might be actually the one that's being loud and wrong this month. And I would say to tread very lightly, because Mercury retrograde, it's retrograde. Mercury is not functioning as smoothly as it typically would because it's in a position, it's in a navigation cycle that brings things up for debate, basically, reconsideration, retracing of the steps, delays, hindrances. It's not functioning and operating as smoothly as it typically would already with a retrograde cycle. Now it's in Sagittarius again. Mercury doesn't love being in Sagittarius because it can conflate the truth, it can exaggerate, it can blow things out of proportion, it can sort of tell a white lie or stretch the truth in order to match a belief system or something that it's passionate about. It can be quite impulsive and out of pocket as well with getting its point across. And then having a square to Neptune, again, blurriness, confusion, brain fog, things not adding up in a more malicious sense, manipulation, deceptiveness on purpose, intentional sort of pulling the wool over somebody's eyes or romanticizing something and therefore not being able to see it clearly because you're sort of looking at it with softened edges. And then having a conjunction with Mars. Mars is the planet of action, assertion, aggression, how we go off on somebody, how we defend ourselves, how we speak up for ourselves, how we sort of confront an issue head on, how we even just go after our desires and sort of build momentum to thrive forward towards something. So we're dealing with a lot of miscommunication, a lot of things not adding up, a lot of conflation of the truth or blurred lines around the reality of a situation. And then we're throwing a lot of aggressive energy into it. So this is like people fighting over things that weren't even true to begin with. People so passionately defending something that doesn't really add up or make sense to begin with. Or people jumping into something so optimistically that they're not seeing the risk that they're taking or that you're biting off more than you can chew until it's too late. So because this has to do with, again, your 1st house of self-identity and who you are, and then your 4th house of where you come from, what, who you are at the core, private life, real estate, living situation, familial relationships, things like that, you might be sticking up for something that you believe in or that you want for yourself or who you are, and either family members or something in regards to your private life is like disagreeing with that, or something is not adding up. I would not also impulsively like jump into or force something in regards to property, living situation, or moving in with somebody. That could be something here as well. If you want to if you're getting this sudden inspiration and impulse to initiate something and do something, if you want it that bad, you can wait a little bit longer. And I think it would just be in your best interest to put it off a little bit, because over the next few days and week or so, things might start to come to fruition a little bit where you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. Or like, thank God I didn't jump into that because it's something totally different than it was sold to me as. Again, just general deception, confusion, miscommunication. On the 29th, Venus is going to enter your 1st house. So thankfully, any sort of identity crisis or any impulsive mistakes that you've made to cutting your bangs or doing something crazy with your looks, or any sort of like change in who you are or something to your physical body, even if you get sick or something like that. Having Venus enter here brings that warmth and coziness and sense of ease to this area of the chart. Things will get a little bit easier for you. You'll find yourself having a boost of attraction and other people really paying attention to you, being interested in you. It's kind of a glow up energy, so it's something to definitely enjoy. And then on the 31st, the last day of the year, Jupiter is going to station direct in your 6th house of work, health, routine, your the expected labor that is required of you for your professional position. It is the labor of your job and of your everyday life. It is the struggle and responsibilities of your everyday life. It's a very mundane area of the chart because it's day-to-day tasks. It's appointments you have to go to, what time you get up in the morning, the food that you eat, your diet, your workout routine, pets, things like that. So to have Jupiter here, it's been here since May, and it'll actually be here till May of 2024. Jupiter's growth, expansion, abundance, opportunities. It wants you to expand this area and kind of open your perspective to work opportunities, to new lifestyles, to health routines and regimens. So to have it retrograde since September 9th, you might have felt a little bit of a lack of progress or more of an internal reflection and spiritual approach to those themes rather than seeing actual tangible changes and growth in the area of your chart in a black and white way. Having it stationed direct again, it's going to resume again regularly scheduled programming. You might start to see some more progress, some abundance, some opportunities sprout up here. If there's been again a general lack of clarity or just like overly being optimistic, or even the opposite, not being optimistic at all about your work situation and like your health and things like that, it'll start to resume. The reason that this is going to be important is because it's stationing direct at 5 degrees, which was the same degree that we had the lunar eclipse in Taurus at in the same area of your chart on October 28th. So this is what's interesting. On October 28th, right around Halloween of this year, you had a full moon, an ending, lunar eclipse, a major ending, a very intense slamming of the doors shut on this area of your life, being work, health, routine, lifestyle, even how you help other people, how you overextend yourself for the needs of other people. And this is was closing a door on October 28th to a cycle that actually began way back in 2021. So at the end of 2021, we'll say November, December, a door opened here when it comes to you starting a cycle back in late 2021 around work, health, routine. Something started to conceive in that area of the chart, and it's been a long 2 years of having the North Node go through that area of your chart. So there's a lot of focus on needing to prioritize those themes in your life. And then the nodes left in July, and having Jupiter station at the same degree that the lunar eclipse was at, that full moon, that really big ending, it was basically saying that around October 28th, whatever you ended, whatever you closed the door on, you kind of handed a baton pass to now Jupiter that is replenishing whatever you've let go of with something far more abundant, with something that does offer a lot more growth, expansion, opportunities. So I think that this is a really great time to reflect on this area of your chart, this area of your life, and whatever you've sort of let go of, especially if you find yourself struggling with that separation and being like, I don't know if that was the right idea, I don't know if I should have done that, or like you're just sad or disappointed about it. This is a very optimistic time to realize that you have much more fertile ground with Jupiter present to help you grow and be bigger or better than you were prior to your other circumstances. So there's a lot going on for you this month. Again, I think that you're one of the main characters here with a lot of stuff going through your first house of self and identity. It might not be super easy throughout the majority of the month, but by the end of it, we kind of get our shit together, for lack of a better word. If you have any questions or you just want to share with me what you're going through this month or what this year looked like for you, I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. It actually really helps me piece together what people's personal transits look like in correlation to their rising sign. So I'd love to hear about it. If you want to book a personal reading, everything that you need is going to be linked in the description below, and you can go to KMONEY.biz. I don't know what's been wrong with me recording these videos. Like I cannot speak English anymore. But I hope you have an amazing end of the year. I hope you have an amazing new year, and thank you so much for watching.